Hello, in this video we're going to have a look at painting our figure. So in the last episode we set all the base colours for our model, and this time we're going to have a go at painting the shoes. So I'm going to get started by making a bit of space. So over here I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit. I'm going to be working on the shoes. And what I'm going to try and do is select the shoes. So in object mode, I'm clicking on the whole figure, and then I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to select the shoes. So I'm going to click and then press L to select the linked areas, press L, so shift L. I'm just going to go around and see if I can select all that shoe area, just like we did in the last one. Oops, I don't want the knife tool. So shift and L. For some reason that doesn't want to do it. Right, so we've got all the shoes selected. And now if we go into texture painting mode, we should be able, oops, what have I done? We should, oh, I've painted it the wrong colour, that's what I've done. Let me just undo that. We should be able to go to the brush and choose a colour, and we should be able to paint on this shoe. We don't want to do that, but it is working and it's set up. So a couple of other things that I'll be wanting to do is I'll need some type of reference image. So I'm just going to bring this open a bit more. Bring this open a bit more, and we're a bit sort of space is a bit of a premium here, but if I go to the image editor here and then I go to image and open, it's popped up on my other screen, but I've got, oops, I have got, oh sorry, it's it doesn't want to do that. Right, I can open up, gosh, that's a very big window. Right, let's just move that there. Downloads. I've taken a photograph of my shoes. So here I've got a picture of the shoe that I want to use. So I'm just going to use that there. Why have we got you? Just don't know why we've got the UVs over that. Shouldn't have. Oh, okay. No, not to worry. So that's the basic shoe that I'm going to try and do. It's not an exact copy of it. It's just roughly how we're going to do it. So make sure you're in painting mode. Need to pay attention to the radius and the strength of your brush. You can move this bar by scrolling with your mouse wheel. So the radius and the strength of the brush are going to be quite important. So we could do a few different things. I'm going to draw in, maybe I'm going to put in some of these lighter areas just to give it a bit of texture. So I'm going to turn the strength down, and I'm going to use S to sample the colour of the shoe. So we've got here, so that's the base colour. So if I wanted some of this lighter region, I could just lighten it up a tad and make it a little bit more yellow. And with a low opacity, that should work out okay. So the other thing I'm probably going to want to do is go into flat shaded mode to start with. So if I just gently draw on here, you might be able to see that it's just giving it a bit of colour. Now it's probably a bit yellow. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to go back to my original colour and probably just make it a bit lighter. Yeah, that'll probably do. So I'm just going to turn the radius down on my brush a little bit, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of colour on it here and there. That's quite a lot actually still. Let's turn it down. That's better. Just little bits of colour, nothing too exciting. just to give it a bit of shading. I'm not really doing anything much, just putting a little bit of lightness in different places. And then likewise, I'm going to go back to that same colour and I'm going to get some a slightly darker version. And I'm just going to put a little bit of the darker version on too. And it's barely noticeable, to be honest. But it's just going to give it a little bit of texture. And I'm going to do that underneath the just going to make it slightly darker underneath the trousers here, because you'd naturally have a shadowy area there. So I'm just going to put a bit of shadow under here. Now you'll notice that I've caught the other side with that, so I probably need to just go over that part there and put that back. As you can see in the map on the left hand side, it's starting to fill in. So I'm happy with that. That will do for now. It's just a little bit of shading just to get going. Now with the shoes, what we're wanting to do is any dark lines or any light lines, we want to get them sort of indicated. And also the sole is a slightly different colour, so I could maybe start painting in the sole. Maybe it's slightly a dark grey. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can get the sole part in. Now what you will notice, let me just turn the strength up and the radius down. I'm going to put a radius about 30. What you'll notice as I'm drawing, you'll notice that you cannot see where the geometry from one part to another part ends, because we're in flat shaded mode. If I go to you know, the rendered mode where we've got the proper lighting, you can actually see the model, so you can actually use that as a guideline while you're painting, if you like. So you can paint this on, just go round, just carefully just go around your model, painting in the bits you want. And if you prefer painting on the 2D part, you can paint on the 2D part as well. Doesn't want to paint on that edge. And then you can make a darker shade if you want a darker bit on the bottom. So just sort of pop your colour on as you go around. And what I'm going to do is, in this sort of transition where it changes shape, I'm actually going to put a really dark colour. So I'm going to turn my strength down and my radius down to about 20. And I'm going to just colour in this transition part here. Now when you've got the lit mode on, it's not very obvious what's happening, but if I turn it back to flat shaded, you'll start to see some definition appearing now, and I can actually then start to pick out some highlights along the top edge of the bottom of the shoe. So we're working sort of across different tones, trying to pick out that edge and then try and blend it in to that top bit and get some sort of sole part going on. So we need a dark bit for the bottom and so on. I'm not going to do any more of that, just gives you a rough idea of how that would work. Let's try and put in some detail of the shoes now. So I'm going to go with a darker brush, quite dark, and I'm going to make sure it's quite small, so maybe 15, and I'm just going to sketch in where I think some of the design parts of a shoe are. So maybe it comes down here like this, and maybe we've got a back piece. My brush is quite thick, but we can always go back. And then on the other side we've got something probably quite similar. How does that go? It goes back quite a bit. Something like that maybe. Yeah. And then what we're going to expect then is we've got some holes. So remember, you're not copying it exactly, you're copying sort of the style of what you're going for. You're not trying to do a photorealistic render of it. You're just trying to get the concept of what you're doing across. So we've got that, and I'm going to draw in where the shoelaces will go. So maybe they're going to go here, and then maybe they come across here, and then across here, like that. Just an indication of where they're going to go. And you'll notice the eyelets are quite bright. So I'm going to we might do this with a metal shader later on. I'm just going to turn my brush down a bit further to 10. And I'm going to just start indicating where these eyelets would go. So I'm just carefully going round where they will go. Right. So the next thing is, when you've got a part that's sort of raised up, like we've got with the edge of this leather, I want to make a lighter colour and go along and create that edge so it looks more 3D. And again, oops, what am I doing? Move that down. I want to make that edge on this leather here quite a lot brighter, because it would be quite bright. So you can see we're starting to build up a little bit of texture now, and there's little bits of detailing we can pop in. There's something there like a little, I don't know what it is, a little rivet type thing, and you can just shade that in. We're starting to put a little bit of detailing in, so you could add a bit more. We've got like a not a toe cap, but a region at the front, and the scaling of my shoe is obviously not right, but I'm not worried about that. And then we could add in some detailing. Maybe if I go for an even smaller brush, we could start thinking about adding in some stitching. So let's get the colour back for the shoe, make it quite a bit lighter. In fact, I think I've gone a bit wrong there. That's it. So I'm just adding in bits, and then we could put in some darker stitching. I mean, it's not very detailed what I'm doing, it's only basic, but it's just to give sort of a concept, an idea of what is going on. And I'm going to make that quite dark at the bottom, and you can see how it would create a bit of definition. And you could keep working on this and keep adding more and more textures and, you know, bits of detailing. You can sample a colour by pressing S and holding the pipette down. So I've captured this lighter colour, so I'm going to use this lighter colour, and I'm just going to put some scratches in and bits of detailing and so on. And if we want to make it even brighter, you know, these edges might be quite bright, we can do that. And then we might have quite a dark edge just right underneath it, and it will help it to stand out a bit more. Obviously I've not done all of the shoe, I'm just going around showing you. But when we zoom out, you'll see that they start to look, you know, a little bit like shoes. Yeah, they're not amazing, but you get the idea. So then we could go in, and I would reserve like the blacks and the pure whites till last, and we start filling in a bit more detail. So highlighting things as we go around, maybe the edges of these laces, You know, you could put a bit of texture on them if you wanted to suggest texture. And so on. And underneath the trousers, you know, flecks of colour. You can really do what you want with this, you know. Maybe a bit of colour on here. And then you could reserve some really intense highlights for when it's nearly completed. And you would get that sort of effect. It's starting to jump out a little bit better. Again, keep changing it from light to dark, trying to get more detail in there as you go, and so on. And you just keep adding more and more. Get that light colour again, a bit lighter on the edge where you've got the transition between light and dark. Pop that in, and maybe that whole area in here is a bit darker because it's shadowed by the laces, you know, however you want to do that. But you can start to see that we're starting to build up a bit of texture and detail, and again you could go for these light colours, and we could start to put in some stitching detail along the edge of the shoe, and so on. So the general approach, because what you're painting is going to be different, the general approach is that you're going to start off with your base colour. You're then going to try and fill in any larger areas of colour variation. So I chose to put some lighter areas on the back of a shoe and some darker areas on the front to give it that variation. And then after I'd done that, I then started going around with my highlights and darkened areas, and just then slowly adding more and more detail. Now I've just put that on there and it looks a bit weird and a bit scruffy, so I'm going to try and use the blending tools. So let's have a look. Is that going to blend in? So I'm just blending that in a little bit because my shoe's quite blurred. What I'm not going to paint instantly, if I'm going to go back to a lit model, is I'm not going to paint them highlights in. But if I am going to keep it as a flat shaded model, I might want to paint in some type of highlight on here on the shoe. So that is all going to depend on what you go for. So you don't want to put a highlight on something where you're going to then have proper lighting on it, because they will conflict. So I'm just going to take that off because I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and probably I will go around and finish this shoe off later, but you get the idea of how it's going to work. So if I wanted to continue that on, I would just grab my colour picker, swap my colour, and carry on going around. Ooh, that's a little bit strong. So yeah, just be careful with your colours and pick your colours carefully. And I'd keep going around and I'd start to, you know, see if I can blend them in. Do the whole shoe. So just have a go. You might need to do it a few times to get it to look okay. And you can see it's obviously painting the other shoe as we go along. And you should get some type of effect that you want. And looking at it from a distance, you know, as part of an animation, that would be fine. I don't like what I've done at the front, and if I didn't like it, I'd simply get the base colour of the shoe and I would just simply go back over it and try and, I don't know, blend it back in again, because I don't like how that was looking. but I definitely would want this bit to be darker at the bottom. So it's a matter of judgment, whatever you think. It just looks dirty the way I've done it. It doesn't look particularly interesting. Turn the strength back up. That will get rid of it quicker. So have a play. There's no right or wrong. You're just going to go round and seeing if you can get your shoes looking okay. And then it would be the same process for the trousers and, well, each part of it really. So I hope that's been of some help. I'll probably do a few more videos where I'm painting some of the other parts, but that's the general process that you want to be going over. Okay, so I'll leave that with you and I'll be interested to see how you get on. Thank you.